Hey there, I'm Ashley, and this is New Day with Ashley. If you're looking for inspiration to make a difference and create lasting impact, then you're in the right place. Get ready to be encouraged by the stories of my guests who have taken risks, overcome challenges, and created opportunities. It's time to make the most of your new day. Today's episode is extra special. It is filled with the best moments and the best advice from all of my guests from the first season. This episode is packed with a ton of information to encourage you and inspire you to take a risk, step up to challenges, and ultimately make a difference. Here's a thank you to my guests and listeners. Welcome back to New Day with Ashley.
Here's the last part when I meet challenges, that in the big scheme of existence, my life is but a blip. But
True.
In that blip, I have an opportunity to do much, but I'm a blip. I can't tell you the name of my great-great-grandparents. Could barely tell you the names of my great-grandparents. And so in 2 generations from now, the best you're going to have is that maybe someone in your family remembers you. But let's make the best of what we have. Let's make the impact. And so from a faith perspective, that's where my faith is even more important, because that is eternal. The things that I do on this earth, I have a friend, he's an architect in town, and he loves building these buildings, but he goes, John, I have this moment sometimes where I look at the building and go, it will be knocked down. I am toiling this much for something that will be knocked down. Oh, yeah. And it's a good perspective for me to, one, that I'm not Mr. Important, that I'm a man and I have an opportunity to help people. Let me take that opportunity.
It comes down to 2 things. Number 1 is you have to have clarity on what you want. And so many people don't take the time to figure out, number 1, who am I? Number 2, what do I want? Mm-hmm. And it's never like a finish line, and some people think like there's this finish line to these things in life. There's no finish line on anything. It's all about the journey. I mean, in my office, I have a PJ Fleck quote, head coach for the Minnesota Gophers. It says, the dream is the journey. And it's strategically placed right across from my desk on the wall, so I constantly remember that. But you need clarity on what journey do you want to take? What do you want to be working toward? What kind of impact do you want to make in the world? And what's important to you? What do your values tell you that are really important to you? Mm-hmm. And then the second thing is, I think life is so much like, I always think sports analogies and coaching, life is so much like, I'll compare it to a football game. In a football game, even if it's a 20-point blowout, what the crowd doesn't realize is there's many times only a handful of plays that made the difference in that game. An inch here, an inch there, a missed tackle here, a turnover there, just so few things. And in life, until you learn to create those opportunities for yourself or recognize those opportunities, they're hard to come by, hard to recognize sometimes. And I think so many people are afraid to take that risk and jump on one of those opportunities because what might happen? And so many people are afraid of going backward too in life. And I always say, if you're going to jump across a cliff for this huge precipice, you have to back up and you better take a running start.
Utilize your resources and don't be afraid to reach out to others. I feel like there's so many times where, especially as an entrepreneur, you think like, oh, this is just a problem that I'm going to have to deal with or I'm going to have to face. And a lot of times that's not true. You might have other options, or you might have other resources that could help you, or another business owner that could at least sympathize with what you're going through.
Just based on our experience, that a bump in the road does not mean you're at the end of the road, right? We have experienced a lot of different challenges, and that's not just unique to us. That sounds like the way it is for all small business owners. You're going to run into a COVID, maybe, again, I don't know, a road construction, or your equipment's going to break down, or there's going to be staffing stuff, but or you're going to be forced to close a coffee shop that you bought, and you're going to be homeless for a little while until you build out your own location. There's just going to be different ways that you're going to have to pivot, and just know that, you got into entrepreneurship or it's appealing to you because it's a flexible job, right? That's kind of why people want to do it, because I'm going to work for myself. I'm going to do what I want to do. Just know that a good amount of pivoting is going to come with it, right? You just have to be able to go with the flow and not be deterred by the bumps. Just know that it's set you on a different path.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes those bumps, even though like you might think that it's a negative, in the long run, it can be a positive. It just depends on how things roll.
It's important to keep self-care at the front of things, because if you're no good, the rest of the business isn't going to be good. And so I'm starting to work on some of that as well. Of you got to keep your self-care in place. Otherwise, you'll quickly age.
Fill your cup first.
Right.
Put your own oxygen mask on first.
Right.
I think we are so quick to give up on our dreams. And
I knew you were going to go there.
yeah, it's just
You could probably finish his sentence.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I just think, gosh, God has uniquely wired every one of us to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And man, like, sometime the timeline doesn't look like what we anticipate it to look like, right? It might take 20
Right.
years. And frankly, if you're going to build something sustainable, oftentimes you have to have the maturity to carry the weight of the thing that God wants to give you. And that means you're going to have to grow up, right? And so I think if people have a dream, they need to work on their own character. They need to spend time and then put the dream down on paper, right? Like, I mean, just write it down and then start sharing it. Start inviting people into it and then fight for the dream. Don't give up. Like, I believe, so, yeah, there are more people for you than there are against you, but it is the loudest voices oftentimes are the people that are going to be dissenting, right? They're going to say, oh, that's terrible. That's dumb. Like, man, go after it, you know, and you might fail a couple times, but I'm trying to remember who said the quote, like, anyway, the more failure you have, as long as you can stand on top of it, it's only going to build you and give you the opportunity to keep growing. And you don't know until you take the risk.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know, you got to lean out over the edge. And are we going to lean out? Are we going to go for it? Or we have to have a plan. We have to, you know, golly, like we've found so many helpful tools in this last season, like traction and using, the EOS system and setting tangible goals and having accountability. All those things are super important. But if you can get your culture right and you can get the dream quickly translatable to other people and they can buy in, now we're going, right? And that's what I would encourage people to do.
Yeah.
So, and don't be afraid to be passionate, right?
Yeah.
Not everybody has to be like an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Although, like, we need really good Christian entrepreneurs in the world,
Right.
like, who are able to stick their neck out, so to speak, or like take that risk or jump when God asks them to. That's so valuable, and I think there's a lot of people that connect with Mike because he is that kind of person. He's entrepreneurial in his mindset. And then there's others who need to join somebody's mission.
Yeah.
Like they need to be sort of like the shaft behind the spearhead, you know, whereas Mike is like more of that spearhead. There are a bunch of us that have lined up behind him to be the shaft that really brings the power to the piercing that he would do in the world, you know? And so like it takes a whole team. God didn't create just one type of person.
No.
Right.
And so you have to really like know yourself well. The more you can investigate the ways God's made you, and particularly the broken pieces of your story, because we've heard lots of times from various authors, and we've said this multiple times, like your pain can become your platform. That's not invented by us. That was somebody else that said that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there are many times when the brokenness that you've experienced in the world can become a vehicle for
To bring
the good
restoration.
thing that God wants to do through you, you know? And so it's, a lot of times it's like, where's the pain? And that's the place to go.
I'll follow what your passions are and just run towards that. Like after taking a little leap to start it, you know, it was more risky to stay where I was than to even try something new, just for the health of myself and who I was as a person. And so, you know, I've said this before and some other things, but like believe in yourself more than anybody else. And so go towards it, you know, like, and it doesn't have to happen overnight. I think that sometimes people look and they're like, oh, wow, I could never do that. And it's like, well, you
have
don't
to read the book and then I just have to go.
Yeah. Yeah. You just have to take a baby step one step at a time. Like buy your URL and then set up a website and then put some pictures on that website. You know, like
Yeah.
it's baby steps, one thing at a time, but find the thing that makes you soar, and like the world needs that energy, and it's a better place for it. You're a better person and you're shining so much light on other people, and I think the world could use a little bit of that. So.
There is amazing people in this town that will help you. Go ask for advice. Like I think that's the great thing about most North Dakotans is if we see someone else that wants to do it. I've had a couple kids that have worked for me part-time, and I told them the same thing. I said, if you need anything, come ask me. Any advice on what you're doing, call me any time of the day. That's what people did for me in the past. I still call my boss that I worked for in college. If I run into a problem that I can't solve, I call Nate and I say, hey, I got a little in over my head. What do I need to do? And I think that's the beauty about Fargo is there's those people. If you're willing to put yourself out there, that will help you, and that will. So take the leap. Like,
yeah, just move forward. I think some people are so frozen and so stuck because they don't know what the next best thing is. And I think sometimes there's no next best thing. It's just moving forward. And like my mom always, or someone, I think it was my mom, said, you know, when one door closes, God will open a window. And I think that that's what it's been for us too. Like sometimes it's that big slam in the face that's a hard no that forces you to climb a little bit, and then you realize, oh, here's my out, or here's my next step. And sometimes it's not written in stone, it's not right in front of us, but sometimes it's just moving forward, and like he said, like just doing the next best thing you know how to do, and then relying on those people around you that are going to be those support systems that are going to give you that advice, that have maybe gone down the road ahead of you, that are just there to walk alongside you and just get you down the road.
Maybe put differently than how I've said it already, I think there's a little bit of like finding that flow, you know. So follow your strengths, you know. What do you have skills in, or like what's your superpower, you know. And I think that's really important. And then I also think that great impact can still be enjoyable, you know. I think that it shouldn't be this grind or you're losing sleep over it, because to me that's not flow, right? That's not the kind of the abundance mindset.
I think a lot of people, if they're good at something, they automatically want to make, or they like something, they automatically want to make it their job, and that can make it not fun really fast. Sure. And that's where I think starting small is where we found a lot of success, because, you know, we've said this a million times, being incremental, you know, you don't have to.
Right. It's not all going to happen overnight.
Yes. You don't have to make it the biggest thing ever when you start. You don't have to fully commit. You can do it so many different ways that make a huge impact, that don't stress you out, that don't cost a lot of money, that don't have a big investment, that can still be fun and awesome. And maybe
in Fargo, I think there's really space for people to start things, and I think that's really attractive. So I think if you're listening and thinking about starting something, like, do it.
And my dad gave me the best advice ever was, if you give it 100%, you'll never fail. If you go 100% in life, you'll never fail. And I truly believe that. And I tell everybody that. If you go 100% all the time, you'll never fail. If you try your hardest all the time and do the right thing, you'll never fail in life, period. And I truly believe that with anybody. I think anybody can, if they live by that motto, they will always be successful at something.
Just be all in.
All in and do the right thing. Right. Do the right thing, do the moral right thing, and go all in.
100%. Yeah.
Oh.
A couple of things with that, I think. First of all, the timing needs to be right. You know, to just jump out and all of a sudden do something without feeling like you have a sense of peace about it would be really, really stressful. Like, even though I was nervous about it, I had a real peace about it. Right? Like I said, I really prayed about it and talked it over with my wife and just say, hey, you know, are we on the same page? Are we ready to go with this? And, you know, she gave me the green light. She gave me the go ahead. And so, you know, had she not, like, I wouldn't have done it. But to have a supportive spouse is just so amazing and so important. And I appreciate her so much. But one of the things that I encourage people to do that I did is kind of start out slow. Like
Sure.
we were provided with additional opportunity to have some income coming into our home that didn't require me making 100% of my old income right away. That was huge because I didn't have to sacrifice 24 hours a day with my family to start my business, because you know what? My family is so important and they need to be a priority. And so if I'm spending all of my waking hours away from them trying to make this other dream happen, like where's my priority in that? And for me, that's not God honoring to do that.
Right.
So I speak at NDSU every once in a while to the entrepreneur classes, and I go into prisons and talk about entrepreneur. And I'll tell you, if I had to cherry pick guys that I wanted to teach, like what I do and how I do it, it would be all out of the prison, 100%. A couple different reasons.
Yeah.
They understand that no isn't final, right? Like when they've been told no their whole lives, and they're still fighting. Yeah. They're still hungry, right? And when you've been handed everything, or you've not dealt with being told no that often, or everything's just like right there at your fingertips, or like you just kind of develop, like when things start to not go your way, you kind of give up, right? I haven't met a lot of, or they just can't think outside the box, right? Like I've met guys in prison that sold like drugs, right? And took the highest level of risk in the community that they possibly could to make the maximum amount of money that they probably could, right? That's like super illegal criminal activity, but it's the same thing, just a different industry.
Sure.
Right?
So if we can put that energy into a...
They ran enterprises. They had a marketing portfolio. They had to figure out how to communicate to people without using like things that can be tracked. Like they figured it, like that little point in your brain that figures those things out is the same thing that entrepreneurs use. And that's not like, you can't be taught that. And so if there's anything that I would try to relay to people is that drop your expectations, drop the idea that you're going to make a lot of money, fall in love with the process and the journey, and fall in love with failure.
What would be some encouragement?
I think you have to just go with your gut. And I think you need to just think about the people, how you're impacting people, and what you can do. And I don't think we'd be where we were if we were worried about every nickel and dime and where everything was going to come from and how exactly things were going to go. And I mean, I'm a huge organizer, so I shouldn't say that I don't worry about that. I do. I can't be, I have to be honest about that. I think about things probably way too much. But at the same time, there are a lot of times where I'm like, well, it's got to work out. If this is supposed to be working out, it's going to work out, and I'm just going to go for it.
Awesome.
Yeah, I tell parents will ask me, I really kind of want my child to play piano, or they're supposed to start in piano. And I say they should go with the passion. Music is hard enough, so if there isn't a passion there, how in the world are you going to? So it's the same for a business. That's a pretty short answer, but that's definitely important. Working in your strengths. I mean, when you start out a business, you're wearing lots of hats. Right. Not working in your strengths and everything. And those can be the things that you don't do as well and also don't energize you.
Right. I would say as soon as you can, you have to try to outsource. Sure. If we're getting to that,
How am I going to be an example for my kids if they have a big, hairy, audacious goal and they pause? Am I doing them a service by not taking a leap of faith with myself? Am I being an example as a dad? And I know that's like it's a little philosophical and stuff, but like, what am I doing to make them not proud of me? I wasn't interested in that. But what am I doing to lead by example? If they are ever hesitant about doing something, are they going to look to me and go, well, Dad started his own business? Because that's the same way I looked at my dad when he started his own business. He had 3 kids in private Catholic school and then decided to quit his job. And then he didn't take a paycheck for a year and a half. And he slept on the couch for 6 months. I watched it in real time because he He knew he had something. He trusted his gut. He knew he was capable of doing it, and then just pulled the trigger. And I saw him suffer through it, and I saw him sort of persevere and then come out on top at the end. And I was like, I can do that too. I've seen the blueprint. And if I don't give that blueprint back to my kids, I said, what was that going to be? So combined with that advice and then just this will to go, if my kids ever have something that they want to do, I want to be the example to encourage them to do it and then put all effort into it. And if it fails, it's okay. Because I've had a lot of these things that didn't work out, these ideas that just flopped. And I wanted to let you know that that's not a bad gig. It's fine because you're doing what you like to do. And I think to value happiness at a job, knowing that you can do things and help others, I mean, that is my biggest joy all the time. And that's, yeah.
Yeah. And I think even like the bigger risk is to not have tried.
Right. I mean, I don't want to have that regret at all, right? We have a finite amount of time on this earth, right? And I don't want to live with that. Oh, God, boy, I wish I could have done that.
Yeah.
I get to now say, I got to do that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a cool feeling. And
or even like, I tried that.
I tried that. Yeah.
That did not work.
No, I didn't. I know
but
now.
I tried it. I know that now.
Yeah. I know what not to do now. And
that one of the things that people fail to understand is the value of a coach. Of course, I'm a coach. Makes sense that I'm going to say that. You're a fitness coach, right? You coach people and you've worked with people. And for somebody to reach their fitness goals, well, guess what? Bringing somebody on board who's already been there, already helped dozens and dozens of people like them is one of the quickest ways for you to achieve your goals. And I hired a coach right away. But the mistake that I made is I didn't hire enough coaches. Okay. I ingrained in some masterminds. I got connected with people, but looking back, like I could have shaved off years of learned experience that I had to go through by hiring more coaches. I have a buddy who is also a coaching client, and he's growing a really big business. His business right now is, he'll make about $6 million this year in GCI, gross commission income. Of course, he has expenses and everything else, but he's probably going to make $1.5 to $2 million this year.
Okay.
Awesome. I mean, that's an insane amount of money, right? And when he got his real estate license, he hired a coach before he even sold a house.
Smart. Yeah.
And if you think about it, like most people, you pay a couple $1,000s to get your real estate license, then you go into it, and then you're hoping to get commission, and it takes a while to find your rhythm. But he said, if I wanted to open up a coffee shop, I'd have to lease a space, I'd have to buy all the equipment, I'd have to buy all the coffee, I'd have to buy all the food, I'd have to employ all the people before I ever made a dime on coffee. And he said, maybe I should do that with my business, is I need to invest in my growth far before I have the cash and the capital to do it. And so he did that, and now in the last 5 years, he's gone from being a brand new realtor to this year will keep $1.5 to $2 million in his pocket.
Wow, so that's a good investment.
Yeah. So my advice to anybody, my advice to younger Eric would have been invest in more coaching.
Sure.
I think a lot of it comes from you need to find a problem you can solve.
Okay.
For people or your community. Because there's a lot of reasons and ways that you can I'm passionate about this, so I'm going to do it.
However.
But if you don't find that you can solve a problem through it, or that there's really a need, which is really a problem that you're solving, that you can fulfill in your community or in people's lives. If it can be really hard to not burn out. And to also just have it work, especially if you're doing it to make a difference. And so sometimes I feel like and this is true of the different events we've done. Some have not worked, where we didn't really, it ended up not being a need our community had or a real problem that we needed to solve.
Sure.
And so we've had to stop doing some things like that. And I think if you can start out with whatever business or thing that you're thinking about doing, combining your skill set and your experiences, and I know passion is a flippant word right now. I feel like sometimes it's they're saying passion again.
Yeah.
But if you can find your passion, the thing that you love doing, the experiences that led you to this place, can match with and meld with a problem that you can actually solve as a business or whatever it is you're doing, that's when it can really work.
Yeah.
And it starts to make a difference, make the difference you wanted to make.
One piece of advice would be
I've given the same piece of advice in business and people that are thinking about starting a business, and people that are thinking about starting a family, interestingly enough. And my advice, for whatever it's worth, is there's never a perfect time.
Yeah.
At some point, you've got to step out in faith and believe in yourself. And there's always going to be an element of risk if you want to start a business or start a family. You know, it seems to me that everything in your life is never going to align perfectly such that you're like, now is the perfect time for me to start a business. And I'm confident that if I do this, it'll be successful because everything is set up just perfectly. So it seems like sometimes life throws circumstances at you where it's like, okay, I guess maybe here's the right time. Maybe I just lost my job and I've had this dream and this passion. I've been working on it on the side. So don't wait for everything to align perfectly. Be willing to, if this is a goal and a vision that you believe in, and that you believe you're supposed to do this, then step out and be willing to take a risk and have faith in it, but be prepared to work harder than anyone else around you to make it happen. It's, at least in my experience, I'm sure there's someone out there somewhere that it's come easily for. I haven't met them yet,
Right.
And I would like to talk to that person. But for me and my journey and the business owners and builders that I hang out with, you got to be prepared to go the extra mile as a founder or a business owner.
So I think sometimes people think that you have to do big things to make a difference. Okay. And I think that way of thinking is just not true. I think little things, can make the biggest difference and a big impact.
Aim small, miss small, which is a quote from the movie The Patriot.
Okay.
But to me, I think people think if I'm going to have a fundraiser, I need to make $40,000 or it's not worth it. But you know what? Like, sometimes all you need is to connect with that one person.
Right.
If you want to have a podcast, what are you waiting for? Your cell phone is big enough to make a podcast, and you can get it out there. And most places host it for free.
Sure.
So what are you waiting for? Any risk that you don't take is wasted time. I've got friends who are some of the funniest people I know, and they talk about some of the funniest concepts, but they've never made or done anything with those concepts.
Really?
I have friends who've made the crappiest short films and have produced the worst comedy shows, but they are light years ahead of those people who have great concepts because they did it.
They did it.
They did it. And so set your expectations low. You'll always be rewarded. There's something in the musical version of Mary Poppins that was on stage that, like, if you want the moon, you reach for the stars, because if you reach the stars, the moon's included. And there's a lot of truth, I think, especially in the business world, right? So don't open a store that sells widgets and expect to be a millionaire overnight. Sure. Open that store, expect to grind, and when that first customer comes in every day, be like, I got a customer today. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And celebrate those things. So if you aim small,
wins,
you miss small, Yeah.
Afraid.
Yeah. Do it afraid.
Do it afraid.
Yep.
I like that. Do it afraid.
Do it afraid.
Yeah.
You're gonna, if it's not gonna feel comfortable, and I think most of us always try to be in that place of comfort.
Oh, let me be ready.
Yeah. I'm not ready. I just couldn't do it, or I just can't do it.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. There's just
right.
I don't have enough money. I don't have enough education. I don't have enough pull or influence. And it's like,
sure.
So all you have to do is just get started with what you have and seek others who can help you. That it is their strength. Because you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You just got to know where the smartest person in the room is.
Trust your team. I think if you, in my personal experience, people who go into especially small business or entrepreneurship tend to have similar personality traits. Some of them are wonderful. Some of them resemble control freak.
Sure.
It's really hard to let go and trust your team. I think I have recently was telling our studio manager, Robin, I said that one of the biggest things I had to learn from a marketing standpoint, especially because that's where I maintain a lot of my control. I can be picky about weird stuff like colors and alignment and stuff like that. And anybody who's worked with me knows that.
I wore purple for Mojo.
Thank you. It looks beautiful. But just weird about the look and feel. And I was asking them to design something and didn't love it, but didn't hate it, but didn't really feel like I could be, like I didn't want to tear her down or whatever.
Yeah.
It was just different from what I would have done. And put it out there, and like overwhelmingly everyone commented, "Oh, I love that ad. It was so cute. It was so fun." And it's a good reminder that just because it's not your way doesn't mean it's the wrong way. Right. Because she did a fabulous job in it, and everybody loved hers way more than they probably would have loved my design. So trusting your team is probably the biggest hurdle for small business owners, at least for myself. But when I do, we've got an awesome team, and they always kind of wow me. So,
and I will tell you, from taking a risk, it's just do it. You will talk yourself in and out of it 1,000 times. I would tell you, if you can't quit thinking about it, that's a sign you have to do it. You know what I mean? And it needs to scare you. It needs to be scary. If it doesn't scare you, I would say if it doesn't make you want to throw up a little bit, don't do it. Like it needs to be scary, or it's not big enough to do.
Yeah.
It has to be something you are like that you really believe in.
Sure.
Because even if you go into something and literally your only motivation is money, I mean, it may take a while, but like you will realize that's not the most important part.
Yeah.
So if all your motivation is just money, I don't know. I would not suggest that being why you get into business. I hope that it's that you really truly believe in the cause that you're working towards. So, whatever it is you're developing, business or product or whatever, it's just got to be something you really believe in and you think is going to be important. So
two pieces. One, I would say finding your passion and just sticking behind it despite anything else, right? I think entrepreneurs do this really well. But what entrepreneurs sometimes don't do is surround themselves with people that can help them make that process easier, right? There is in the world of entrepreneurialism, there is no room for an ego, right? It has to be, maybe your ego is what started your business and got you going. But everyone that I have talked to that has ever had success attributes a lot of that to being authentic and genuine, right? Yeah. And so I think, again, surrounding yourself with people that want to raise you up and not push you down is easier said than done. Because it's lonely. As a business owner, it can be really lonely. And so that is one of the pieces. And then I would just, again, reemphasize the courageous will, right? Go beyond where you think you can push yourself. Have that courageous will to be like, all right, if you know what's right, then you'll do anything to make sure that you can achieve that.
The best advice is, and I was trying to touch on this earlier, is, wherever you're at now, you can make an impact, right? I talk about these other people volunteering, and it's like, and they were doing this in their free time, they don't always ask like, oh, do I get paid to go volunteer at Churches United for the Homeless?
They
it's
just
like,
want to go do it.
What's the point in that? It's just a job then, right? So take where you're at seriously, because people see you are building bridges, you're not burning bridges, work hard now.
Message for the community. If somebody says they're modeling or they want to do this, support them. And, I see actors like, oh, I'm going to do theater acting, and people support them. Like there's like no big deal. But then they want to do commercials, or they want to do making films or modeling, and they get put down. And I'm just like, don't. A lot of parents who are looking to find themselves, if they want to go out and do something different, like be in TV commercials, walk a fashion show in Fargo, North Dakota, or Minneapolis, wherever, let them. and support them and cheer them on. Because you know what? At the end of the day, sometimes it might be a matter of helping them feel better about themselves. Because we all struggle at some point in some way who we are, you know.
Just follow your passion.
Yeah.
I could have, as an entrepreneur, you could do all kinds of businesses, but if it's not your passion, you're not going to last very long.
Right.
And I think that's, to me, is probably the biggest thing is to, whatever you are passionate in, follow it and realize that you may not, I've tried to figure things out. You may not figure it out. There's things that'll fall in your lap and you're going to be like, why did this happen? Sure. You know, why did COVID happen? I mean, who knows? That might have been the best thing that happened for MPF. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think that there's so many things that are going to happen. It's just, if you're passionate, you can work through the downs. And, you know, so follow your passion. And then, as we talked about many times, you know, make sure you have a good support system.
I think the best advice would be get the deal done and we'll make it happen. We can be open 24/7. We have to stay late. Excuse me. We can stay late. There's 1,000 things we can do if we get a deal versus being afraid to get a deal.
Sure.
Because you may not be able to complete it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that would be, one of my biggest pieces of advice would be just get it done.
Sure.
Complete a deal and then figure out how to do it later.
Say yes.
You will never be ready. I don't think you can ever have it be ready and have it be perfectly lined up. I think it's like kids, right? Like I have buddies like, when we're ready.
Never.
They haven't been ready. And it's been 15 years.
Right. Yeah.
And I think I don't think any parent is ready. And I think that's the same thing with the business.
Yeah.
Show up.
Yeah.
Really. Show up. Be there. And I'm at fault of this sometimes too, is that it's like, if you say you're going to be there, be there. And sometimes the things that you dread going to, that you don't want to go to, or I got all this other stuff I want to do, I'd rather do this, that you end up showing up to, end up being the best things you ever go to.
Sure.
And they create relationships and things you never, ever would have before. That, to me, is the most important part of all of this, is that, like, I can't tell you how many things I've attended that I had no interest in attending that have brought about lifelong relationships and friends. And that, I think, is what's most vital. And Frank,
doesn't matter how old you are. I started at 8, but you can start at like 2 to like 102.
There we go.
There's no limit. And so it doesn't matter how young or old you are. Just make a difference and you'll have fun and it'll be beneficial to others.
I'd say respect the amount of time it takes, you know, and that's
a great one.
You know, pain or when things are hard isn't the time to kind of get up, you know, let go of the rope and say, oh, I'm going to try something else now. You know, at least that's for me. That's my experience is, you know, just having an understanding of what you want to do forever. And no matter how hard it gets, just keep pushing through it.
Mm-hmm. And I think, Mike and I are both a testament to that. Like interestingly enough, Mike worked his tail off for me early on. And, I took notice. He's in the position that he's in within this firm because of all of the hard work that he's done. And I think that is the same for me. Like I worked my tail off, certain people took notice, and they hired, me to do a lot of things early on in my career. That's how it works, right? Like it's not quitting when it's hard.
Sure.
It's kind of going, oh, wow, I'm going to work through this, get to the other side. And then people go, wow, I challenged that person to do that thing and they did a great job. I mean, that's kind of what we do now. I mean, it's the same thing. Like our firm is challenged to do projects all the time by clients. And, if you're successful, they hire you again. Or you get the next bigger, it's interesting how they just kind of build on top of each other. And
maybe you want to quit your job. Like, I hate this. This sucks. Like, don't ever quit on a bad day.
Sure.
If you're going to quit on a good day. Because if it's your good day and you still want to quit, then you know that, okay, like, it's probably a good thing. Because I've had plenty of days where I'm like, this is too stressful. Like, it's 24/7. It's not just like 9 to 5. I mean, that job doesn't go away.
Sure.
There's been times where I want to be like, quit, but then on the good days I'm like, oh, I love my job. So
right,
that's my advice.
I don't know, the best thing I would say is like
a lot about what we talk too is like, I don't underestimate the power of like connections. Like if you can make a connection with somebody, with a family in my industry, or with a friend, or with an acquaintance, and that person's going to know somebody that's going to know somebody that said they know you, and making a connection with a family in my industry, you're just making people feel comfortable. It's not rocket science to just be nice and make those connections easily, and that just makes people feel comfortable regardless of what industry you're in. I always tell people this too, is like, shadow somebody in the industry you want to go into too.
Yeah.
My gosh, like I've had people try to go into funeral service and they don't make it because they shadow us, and they're like, oh my gosh, you have to work weekends and stuff like that. Yeah, like you should go to this before you go blind into funeral service or anything you want to do in life. Shadow somebody so you know what the ins and outs of the occupation you're trying to do is going to be.
I'd say you can't skip over the steps. And my thing is, like, I wasn't a business person when I started, and I believe I'm still not the business guy. You know, I try, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's stepping out and put a plan together and go after it. Like, still today, I still work about 70, sometimes 80 hours a week. Wow. And it's not something that success don't come overnight, and there's no shortcut to it. And if there's a shortcut, something might be wrong with that. You know what I mean? So it's always putting that plan together and putting the right people around you, and look to recognize who's there to help you get where you want to go and who's trying to deter you or trying to bring you down. And I believe that if you believe that you can do it, and it's gonna pull you. There's like that pull.
Encouragement if you are a company builder, a startup guy, whatever you want to, startup guy or gal you want to call it. I think certainly, like, if you haven't started, like, there's no better time to start the company. Like, there will not be a time in the future where, oh, it's the right time. I can't even think of a time when somebody said, I waited the right amount of time and then I started the company.
Right.
Obviously, if you have an event where you're going to have a lot of money or something, you can de-risk it. But generally speaking, especially if you're like in college still, even in high school, and you want to start something, like, you should start working on it, because it's going to be a few iterations to get it right. Yeah. And the less obligations you have in life, the better it's going to be to start now. And then if you have a lot of obligations, but you're convicted and passionate about it, whether it's figuring out a way to do it part-time for a while, like just work evenings on it and hustle. But eventually, like, the only way to really get successful, in my opinion, in your company or whatever idea you have to eventually go full-time. When we went full-time, when I was finally done with school and not distracted, it just turned the knob up on the business, right? And so if you can figure out how to get majority of your focus into it sooner than later, it's going to be more successful, assuming it's not a terrible idea. And
yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I think you have to be passionate about what you do, or it kind of sucks the fun out of it. And so if you're passionate about what you do, if you're thinking about getting started, I would definitely talk with people that you surround yourself with who you know have strengths different than yours. Mm-hmm. If I only ever met with people just like me, my business would have flopped. You have to have people who definitely have those different strengths, possibly in marketing or banking or accounting, or people who also aren't afraid to tell you no, that's a bad idea. And we have an advisory committee, and they do a pretty good job of that. And I think that's been a really integral part too. So, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean they're your friends, but surround yourself with allies who are going to support you in what you do, but also tell you no when you're out of your lane.
Every day is an opportunity. Approach it that way, right? You know, and I would say, you know, maybe tied to what I was saying earlier about, you know, realizing that what I was doing was creating so much impact. Mm-hmm. The same is true for anything. The same is true for anything and everything that's out there, right? You know, you might be working in sales. You might be working as a banker or a teller. You might be working as, you know, an insurance agent. You might be, you know, working as a used car dealer salesperson. I don't know, right? I mean, you name it, right? A postal worker. every single one of these things has the opportunity to create impact. Not any one of these things is too small, right? If you're passionate about it and you love what you're doing, right? And you can find ways to create meaning and impact for yourself as well as others in the process, then do that.
Yeah.
You know, then enjoy that, right? That's a pretty beautiful thing to be able to find that and implement that in a professional setting, because not everybody has that opportunity or has the even takes the time to take stock of that possibility for themselves, right?
Get a mentor. And again, a shameless plug for all the resources right here in this community, within the state, and ask those questions and be open to the feedback. Right, as a business coach, we value and appreciate your ideas, but then if you're also open to receive that and take that to heart, builds a strong foundation, right? And so getting those resources early so you can plan for what your ultimate goals are is just, I can't say that enough.
I think, as women in general, we're risk adverse. And I cannot tell you how many conversations I've had over the years with people who either have an idea or want to make a career change or do something, totally different than what they're doing. And they come to me asking, like, how did you do it? And at the end of the day, you just have to do it.
Sure.
I mean, it's like any decision in life. Not everything is going to be lined up perfectly. So part of it is just having faith and trusting that good things will happen. And so it's, not just waiting.
I hope that people find the thing that sets them on fire. I hope people find something that when they get up and they say, you know what? It's a new day. See what I did there?
I like
it's a
that.
new day, and I can go make a difference with the day that I'm given today. I can dream a big dream. I can make plans. I can try to make an impact.
First of all, don't be risk adverse. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you've got to take risks, and you can't be afraid. So many people, I think, are focused on failure than they are on taking the risk itself and being energized off the risk. I totally understand that there are risk adverse people out there, and that's I understand it. I appreciate it, but I think taking risks is commensurate with the reward that you potentially can get. So taking a risk is okay. Learning from that risk, especially if there's failure, but also learning from your success. What made you successful? What made that risk work out for you? And then on the flip side, what didn't work? And if you can constantly not take yourself so seriously that you can't evaluate personally what your role in that was and what you added, what value add. I always talk about value add. What value did you add, and where you could have added better value is incredibly important. And so, if I'm giving you advice, don't take yourself so seriously that you can't do a full evaluation of yourself on what you have what you've added to a specific project.
I think to just go for it. That sounds so cliche, but we do so many things because we're so fear-based of what others are going to think. And at what point do you realize that we just have one life?
Right.
We just have one life. And a lot of us, we're hitting 40, we're closer to the end than we are to the beginning. At what point does that stop? And I posted about it the other day. I feel so grateful to have a middle. You always have a beginning and you hear about people having an end. There's a whole lot of people that have passed away in the middle. And we have a middle right now with a whole bunch of knowledge, maybe hopefully a little bit more money than you did in your 20s. And what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do? How are you going to change? What does your heart want to do? Instead of going, no, I can't. It doesn't always have to be these big things. Are you serving at the shelter? Are you serving at your church? What are you doing to fill the cups of others and yourself?
Definitely to just continue learning and continue going for it. That's for sure. Have to keep learning and have to keep learning from people that are professionals in their field, because, not everyone with a selfie camera is a professional on the internet. Majority of them aren't.
Yeah, right.
And yeah, so mentorship, learning from the experts, people that are further down the road that have experience. Experience is king, Don't take business advice. If you can get business advice from someone with years of business ownership experience, That's who you get advice from, not from someone who's like doesn't have the experience.
Right,
So
hasn't
when it
done
comes to the crucial stuff, yeah. So
I think the most important thing is to realize that, what value are you bringing in? Yes, there are so many things that you feel passionate about, but at the end of the day, ask yourself if you wanted to turn that into an entrepreneur business, what value are you bringing in? I mean, when you look at Coda Botanics, we're not the only CBD store in town. However, we have the most 5-star review on Google. The value we're bringing in is the education part and also the customer service. We always checking in with our customers and to see, if this product is truly working for them or do they need something else. That kind of personal touch we give out.
Don't be afraid to take your idea full circle. And if it's worth thinking of, it's worth spending a little on. And so it's not hard to get a prototype or concept any longer because there's so many. You've seen people with 3D printing all over the place now. You can go just about anywhere and have that done. So you need a physical 3D model of what it is that your idea, if it's a product. And then test it. Say, does it work? And if it works, ask people questions about, would this be of value to solve this problem? If you're open and vulnerable enough to
receive that feedback,
get shot out of the sky, so to speak, you'll get good feedback. And if you got something there that's worth spending a little bit more effort on, you could have it. You could have something that people need. So invest in yourself. Don't quit.
If you have something on your plate that you're thinking about, just ask questions or, don't be afraid to make mistakes or I remember when I first started our website for the Angel Baby Mile. So we have a website, angelbabymile.org. I've just kept that even though we now have a foundation, Jules and Lenny Foundation, but I just decided to keep it as what people know of it as. And I remember telling one of my clients about it and I was just yeah, I think there's just all these typos and it's not ready. And she was ready, just do it, just publish it. It's never going to be perfect. What are you waiting for? And so I think sometimes we think it has to be perfect before we go forward with it rather than you know what? People don't mind if there's a typo here or there. You're out there, you're trying to get it going, get the ball rolling, you're sharing information. And so I think that would be one of the advice if you're thinking about starting something. Don't worry about if it's not perfect. Just go for it and don't worry.
Well, I don't think there's one way to do that except to get involved. You have to find a thing that you like to do. Maybe it's something you don't think is being done well,
Sure.
So go ask about it. Maybe see if you can help with that. Try to do it from a constructive standpoint. Don't go in saying, that stinks, you should let me do that. But, it might be a way. I'm sure some good things have happened that way. But yeah, if there's something that you're interested in or think you could be passionate about and you have time on your hands, then go and do it. Absolutely. Get to know your community. I think that's the most important thing first.
Don't do it. I think that that's the advice that I wish I would have gotten or understood at any of this. People told us that it was going to be hard, and that didn't scare us sufficiently. We thought, I work hard. I can do hard. That's I think what people didn't tell us is it's going to scare the ever-living shit out of us, and that it's going to make us want to puke, and we're going to stare at numbers, and you're going to have problems that you cannot solve that are going to hurt really bad, and there's no good answer. And we had our first instances with that. That was kind of where we were looking for the adult in the room, and be who was supposed to tell us that this could go this bad?
Yeah.
And no one told us that. And so my advice to anyone is don't do it. Don't do it because the only way to do anything that's a dream or something that you really believe is that has to be something that is burning inside of you, and that there's no way for you to live if it dies inside of you. And the only way that you can live with yourself is that if you get that out into the world and bring it to life and make it a thing, if that's the only way you can survive,
you're not going to listen to me. You're going to do it anyway. And if that's not how your idea goes and that's not what you believe in, then please listen to me and don't do it.
The best piece of advice is also, I changed a circle of friends. I changed a circle of friends that were always negative Nellies, always negative. We go out for drinks, after work, and just really kind of, one of these friends was just always kind of not very positive towards other women, like when they would walk in the bar or see somebody. And I thought to myself, that is just downright mean. That's mean. So change your circle of friends if you don't feel that they are benefiting you. Find that solid group. It used to be, I want to know everybody or be friends with all these people, but narrow that circle down to like those few really good ones that have your back, that will support you, that encourage you to do what make you want to do your best, make you want to succeed and see you succeed along the way and not be jealous.
I would encourage folks to count themselves in. I've been at Emerging Prairie for 10 years. Nobody came over and knighted me and said, you can do this. And I think if somebody's sitting there going, wow, the community needs this, or we should do this, or whatever, it's like the John Legend song. I was looking for a leader, and the leader was me. And I think folks need to give themselves permission to take action and to go forward. And maybe I think about folks that take it upon themselves to be devil's advocates. And they want to help, I think out of the goodness of their heart, expose, the risk or the concern or the what ifs. And yet, I would encourage everyone to think about what if it goes so great, and try to build a different type of thinking.
Wow, what a great episode. Thank you so much for joining me. It's always so inspiring sharing these stories. Remember to like and subscribe. I would love if you could leave me a 5-star review. This helps us reach and engage with more people. Join me next week, and until then, make the most of your new day.